Hello, my name is Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers, and welcome to another 2014 League of Legends World Championship video analysis. Once again, this is a video analysis, not a shoutcast, so there will be plenty of spoilers throughout the match. I'm assuming that you have watched it, know the outcome, or don't care. I will be focusing primarily on macro level strategy, particularly team compositions, their win conditions, how teams do, don't, and should use these win conditions to use their team compositions to pull off these win conditions. I'll also be looking at map rotations, macro level strategy in terms of objective and vision control, as well as a lot of rotational movement through jungles. Occasionally I'll be looking at individual matchups, item choices, as well as the individual play when these things become apparent to the win or loss of a team. This game we have Fnatic versus OMG. This is their second match in group stage. And if you've seen this before, this is a very long game. There are several points where both teams could have won and make mistakes. There's maybe 3 or 4 different times in this game where it could have been over before it ends. So there will be a lot to talk about. There's also, since there's so much time, I may run out at times and have to wait for the next point, but I'll try my best to fill out all the time. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this match. For this match, Fnatic are banning out Yasuo, Aurelia, and Zilean. Aurelia and Zilean really did a number on them in the last game against OMG. Yasuo being a strong champion that Peke doesn't really play, so they want to knock that out. I like the Aurelia and Zilean bans from them. They didn't play well against Zilean, so might as well go ahead and remove that. By banning Aurelia, you're knocking out the stronger top laner of OMG's side, whereas Soaz doesn't seem to play it too often. And this allows Fnatic to have several choices for Soaz. In fact, in this game, instead of having Ryze, Rumble, and Maokai banned out, we see all 3 of them are up. On OMG's side, we see Lee Sin as a pretty generic ban, and Alistar. This is pretty interesting. They have a loss of ban due to talking in one of the games. Doesn't really come into play too much, I think, other than leaving a lot of the trifecta open up top. You might have seen if they had that ban, potentially a Rumble ban, a Maokai ban, or a Ryze ban. It probably would have really changed the flow of picks and bans if it had been up, as well as the game. In any case, we see Fnatic grabbing Rumble first pick. I really don't like this as a first pick. I don't think there was any threat for OMG to pick up this Rumble, as well as it completely dictates sort of the starting strategy of Fnatic's team. Aside from that, by picking Rumble first, they're giving up this Thresh and Kha'Zix, really just putting themselves at a disadvantage, I think. They could have picked up Fnatic, would have been a better choice than the Elise they end up with. They could have grabbed Thresh, which is a great support, have plenty of playmaking. Either way, this is what Fnatic ended up with. OMG grabbed Kha'Zix and Thresh right away, the very strong picks. Another reason why I think they should have grabbed one of these 2, particularly Kha'Zix, is because the trifecta of the top lane was still there. You had Rumble, Ryze, and Maokai. You weren't really denying anything with this Rumble pickup. On Fnatic's side, we see Nami, Kog'Maw being picked up. Very strong champions, have some mid-game power spikes, as well as having a better flow into the mid to late game than, say, Tristana does. Does decently well against Thresh Lucian, which is who OMG will be picking up. Almost kind of feel like Fnatic should have grabbed this Lucian. Lucian Nami is very strong. They could have had huge bully potential, could have focused as well onto this mid-game power spike with Rumble. But the Kog'Maw pick does give them some late-game scaling, something to fall back on. And that's going to be particularly important in this game. However, who knows, if they had picked Lucian, everything could have been different in this match. So on Fnatic's side, we see Syndra and Elise being picked up. I'm not necessarily I feel like Elise needs to be in really specific compositions. she kind of works here. I prefer more skill shots being thrown out, say a Morgana, a Thresh instead of Nami, potentially Aurelia top for the stun, Maokai for another snare protection. However, it still works out well, especially since they do pick up Syndra. This gives them two very long-range fishing abilities in Syndra Stun and Elise Cocoon, as well as having the Nami follow up with her bubble and her ultimate. So they've got some good chain CC, and it does sort of work out. On OMG's side, we see them picking up Zed. I really like this final pickup. In most situations, I'm not a fan of Zed in the World Championship, but in this particular match, I think it's a great pick. In terms of the team fight, he's not going to be very strong. There's going to be a lot of Zhonya's, Quicksilver Sashes. There's CC to stop him when he goes in, as well as the exhausts. So I feel that Zed needs to stay away. However, what's so strong about Zed in this composition is that there's no response from Fnatic to deal with him. This Zed is picked against a composition in which he is the strongest split pusher by a fairly large window. This also means that he's either going to draw away one or two people. He'll have to draw away Syndra. He'll have to draw away Rumble, and these are two key components to Fnatic's strategy in this match. On top of this, OMG can also send Ryze to split push, pulling Fnatic farther apart. And since Fnatic are running a sort of disengage catch composition, not fighting them is probably one of the best things you can do, especially because OMG have very weak engage. The only way that OMG engage in this match is through a Thresh hook, through a Ryze flank, or through Zed or Kha'Zix suiciding into Fnatic's team. So OMG have a great way to deal with this disengage composition simply by ignoring it and running the split push, to which Fnatic have no response. Elise herself isn't even that great in the 2v1 against split pushers, requiring her to hit her cocoon. Since there's also everything's all skill shot based on Fnatic's side, it's much easier for one person to be dodging the skill shots than for a whole team of 5. So as we start up the match, before I go deeper into the team compositions, watch particularly this setup by Fnatic. They're sort of running lines of scrimmage. It looks like they want to avoid the duo lane. I don't necessarily think this is the best choice. You really want Rumble to get that one-on-one so he can get his levels, get his EXP, make sure he gets to that early level 6, and that he's not delayed. If he's delayed so much that you can't fight for dragons early on in the mid-game, then you're sort of losing out on the huge potential of this pick. That's why I'd much rather see them going for the one-on-one and the two-on-two. When they see OMG's movements, Fnatic should be expecting what's happening here and stay top. They have the opportunity to pull off the freeze if OMG go bottom, even though it does look like OMG are going to head towards the top. Could have sent Rumble bottom, moved Nami around through the base. They had the opportunity to get better position than they're going to in this match. What we're going to see happen here, Lucian is going to be in lane in time to get the freeze, whereas Kog'Maw and Nami are not going to reach bottom in time for the freeze. This is going to end up being a huge disadvantage for Fnatic, as Ryze is going to end up with roughly double the CS of Rumble in the early to mid game. Because Kog'Maw doesn't get the freeze, the wave pushes into the tower of OMG. OMG respond pretty correctly and are there in time for taking the CS and the creeps. On top of this, since Ryze is ranged, and we're going to see Thresh moving down to the bottom very early, this allows Ryze to get more pickup. I do want to note that Fnatic were planning for this lane swap, and that's why Soaz is running with the Health Crystal as his start. This is going to get him very quickly to the Haunting Guise and his the generic start you should pick up as a Rumble when you're moving through the jungle. Either grab that health crystal, grab the amp tome, and then get the early haunting guys. So rather than picking up, say, Boots 3 or Doran's Shield or some other more defensive item for the one-on-one. Now, we see that Jungle Pass 2 is well coming into big play here. Elise and Rumble kind of dawdle a little bit when they don't see Ryze. The bottom lane already has vision of the turret. Elise and Rumble should have been heading towards this dragon a good 5-10 seconds ago, as well as having Nami join them quickly, and Kog'Maw. Because of this delay, because OMG side did wolves, or no, they did blue, white, wolves, I believe it is. Well, anyways, they did the 2 camps of Fnatic and the red buff of their own. They are able to end up levels 3 and 2 to Fnatic's 1 and 2 on their top end jungler. This would have worked out for Fnatic if they had instead gone for this dragon much quicker. If Kog'Maw had joined them as well, they had the opportunity for this, but they got a little greedy and took a little too much time. They were expecting Ryze to show up for this wave at the bottom with a TP and then get a quick gank onto him. However, OMG played it well by not doing so, by running slowly. They expected having the 4-man gank onto Ryze if he showed up, and so they waited until they had 4-man themselves. Fnatic instead, when they had vision of that turret, should have simply ran towards the dragon and taken it. Because of this lane swap, in my opinion, mistake by Fnatic, not getting that freeze, we see a humongous difference in CS already. Ryze is at 14 CS, Rumble's at 2. We also have a level 1, finally level 2 Rumble against a level 3 Ryze. Rumble has really been put on the back foot due to these map movements. And Ryze is already in lane with his Tear of the Goddess, so the power difference between these two is already very large. And we're going to see it come into huge play as Rumble's barely going to get any CS. So this is great map movement by OMG at the start. They really played it well, pulling off the freeze, being there for the dragon stop. Fnatic could have played it better. Like I said, they could have just gone for the 2v2 at top. They could have had Nami in the bottom if they were planning for that swap to get the freeze with Sword for safety, especially after they saw OMG's movements. When they saw all 4 of them by their blue buff, Nami should have been in the bottom lane to grab that freeze already. On top of that, if they had rushed the dragon instead, Fnatic would have been able to have a proper trade in response to the freeze, and just would have played out better. So this puts them on the back foot. The saving grace is that Syndra is performing better in lane than Zed. She's got a nice solid CS lead. And so this works out pretty well. If Fnatic had performed their split push or their start correctly, it is possible that they could have been running at 8.3, 8.4 gold, having a pretty decent lead already. Alright, so let's move from that into team compositions. Fnatic have crafted pick a siege, poke, disengage, catch composition. Rumble and Nami provide a great amount of disengage for Fnatic's team. If OMG ever try and run into them, which is essentially all they can do, then Fnatic simply throw out the Rumble ultimate, throw out the Nami ultimate, and they can back off. It's very easy for them to disengage, as OMG has almost no engagement on their side, other than getting a solid Ryze flank or throwing themselves at Fnatic's team, which is very dangerous due to the burst of Syndra and Kog'Maw, as well as the triple CC that Fnatic have running. Fnatic's only worry is really the hook from Thresh. That's going to be OMG's best chance at getting into Fnatic's team without having to fully commit themselves to a deep dive. So what this means for Fnatic's team composition is that they have a very easy way to siege turrets and objectives of OMG, particularly the turrets especially when Kog'Maw hits his Trinity Force. That would be the signal for Fnatic to move into OMG's turrets. Siege it up, get a couple hits on Kog'Maw, make sure he stays safe from Thresh. If OMG ever trying to engage at the turret, throw out Rumble ult, throw out Nami ult, Syndra stun, burst down one of OMG's champions, and just back off after the OMG engages down. Return to the turret and push. A lot of Fnatic's potential is going to be on the Syndra stun and on the Elite's Cocoon, not necessarily on their ultimates. When OMG burn their ultimates to engage, Rumble and Nami burn theirs for the disengage, and it's a pretty even trade, with Fnatic being able to have better follow-up after they engage with their catch composition. In the laning phase, they should be seeking to go even, especially making sure that Rumble's able to get to his level 6 on fairly even footing. Every lane for Fnatic is not really in any sort of threat, words failing me. They're not in any danger, that's it, of being killed. The worst one is probably bottom lane. Mid lane's going to go pretty even, and as we see, Xpeke is doing really well. Maybe would have preferred to have seen a second exhaust against this Zed. Would have been really strong for this Syndra. However, that's not the choice we end up seeing from Fnatic. It also would have benefited her later on against Zed in the 1v1 split push, more so than Ignite does. So if Fnatic can go even in lanes, they can transition to some good mid-game power. Their weaker points are going to be this Kog'Maw against Lucian, but it's really not that huge a dip. It's more like a 60-40 power dip, whereas Tristana is more like a 75-25, with Lucian being very far ahead in that. So it's fairly even on that point. Rumble will be stronger than Ryze, as Ryze is in its mono building phase. Syndra will provide more of a threat than Zed because she has pick potential with Elise, whereas OMG have to go for the all-in. So early dragons should go in favor of Fnatic. Right there, it's potentially possible that Exhaust would have done a lot more, saved Syndra from dying, allowed her to still survive and kill Kha'Zix. She used her Ignite on Zed, and it didn't end up killing her, and that's one reason why I think Exhaust would be better. Could have gotten that first blood without the trade. Just really reduces a lot of his damage potential. So that's Fnatic's team. If they ever really get ahead, then they can start to bully turrets with Kog'Maw. Like I said, they have the siege potential. Even when they're not ahead, they still have siege potential. But when they are ahead, what this means is that if OMG try and do their split push, Fnatic have the power to bully down the turret as 5, even if Zed is off split pushing, as OMG are lacking in wave clear particularly. We do see that Kha'Zix has picked up his Evolved Spike Rack. This is the proper play when your team is lacking wave clear. It makes it much better. Unfortunately for Fnatic, since they should have dragon control, Rumble really tries to go for that kill onto Zed. What I would have loved to have seen instead, if you want to go ahead and look back at it, when Soaz used his ultimate, instead of using his ultimate to try and chase down this kill onto Zed, Fnatic could have just ran his 4 at the dragon. They had 4 full HP members. Kha'Zix was dead. Zed would have to back. Fnatic could have taken that dragon and gotten the guaranteed gold, instead of ending up giving a kill on Rumble and losing the dragon because Rumble's dead. You have to accept where your proper power points are and not go for some of these more sort of desperation plays. So let's talk about OMG's team. OMG's team is really running either a 1-4 or a 1-3-1 split push. I'd really rather see the 1-3-1 split push. It's going to be very strong, and there's no response from Fnatic. Rumble is going to lose to Ryze, especially with how strong he is right now. And Syndra and Zed are going to kind of go even. Right now is a great point in time for OMG to recognize this. Ryze has almost a 40 CS lead over Rumble. He's got a kill. He's got the dragons behind him. He's almost to Evrada's Aegis, moving into his mono-scaling phase with his Tear of the Goddess 2. He's really strong and he's ahead of the curve. Zed, on the other hand, has got his Hex Drinker, so he's pretty safe against Syndra. He's got 2 kills. He's got more gold, even though he's behind in CS, because of the Dragon Take, as well as the 2 kills. So what OMG could do at this point, send Ryze top, send Zed bottom, and leave Lucian, Thresh, and Kha'Zix in the middle. Run a 1-3-1 split push, and put as much pressure onto Fnatic as you can. Fnatic's strength comes when their whole team is together. Said they have great disengage, they have good catch potential, they have good siege potential, but if you pull members apart from Fnatic, you completely shut down their team. Elise, Kog'Maw, and Nami are a bit weaker than Lucian, Kha'Zix, Thresh, especially as the game continues. Kha'Zix will get stronger and stronger than Elise. One good hook from Thresh can completely turn that fight, whether it's on Kog'Maw or Nami. They can take out the trio squad in the mid lane. So OMG have the advantage, especially right now. And here's one thing to note. Rumble uses his ultimate to clear the top wave. He does save the tower, but I really dislike when Rumbles use their ultimate on creep waves. And we see this several times from Soas, actually. Right now we're going to go into a fight. OMG know Rumble ultimate is down, so why not go for it? If Rumble had had his ultimate here, could have used it on this Zed and Ryze, could have got a lot more damage. Perhaps they could have even turned this entire fight. But being down in ultimate really hurts them, even when they get the jump onto Thresh. It is still a bit of mispositioning by Fnatic. And without Kog'Maw having his Trinity Force, he's really losing out on power. So it probably wasn't the best idea for Fnatic to go ahead and take that fight anyways, especially with Rumble ultimate being down. But we do see the power of their pick and catch composition. See Thresh, kill Thresh. So getting back to OMGs, they have really strong lanes, which is very beneficial when you're going to run a split push composition. Ryze is able to bully out on Rumble. He just has to be careful of Flame Spitter and Electro Harpoons. Ryze shouldn't feel like he's in any threat as long as he doesn't go for the all-in against Rumble. He can very easily keep up with him in lane, push Rumble into his turret and whatnot, and then just sort of start to scale up. Give up the dragons if OMG has to. They are a little weaker at that. They can still look to fight with good skill play and positioning. But primarily OMG are just going to want to go solid in their lanes and hopefully win them. If they can get ganks with Kha'Zix onto Rumble, it's going to be very strong, especially against Elise, who kind of needs to be there for the start of the fight rather than getting the counter gank. If Ryze and Kha'Zix can get onto Rumble with just a very solid gank, Rumble should go down pretty quickly. This would give Ryze the lead, allowing him to continue to snowball and push and the 1-3-1. Top of this, Zed as well, if he can get ahead, should be able to stay ahead. He's going to have some issues when Syndra picks up her Zhonya's, but that doesn't mean Syndra's going to be able to kill him. It just means they're going to trade ults, and Zed can continue to keep Syndra away from the group, which is really what he wants to do. While he would love to be able to split push and take turrets, if he's able to keep Syndra out of the group, it really hurts Fnatic's team composition way more than it hurts OMG's team composition by not having Zed. In fact, having Zed with the team doesn't really do much for OMG. As we stated before, if he goes in, he can look to be heavily CC'd. So with OMG having solid lanes, especially in the bottom and top lane, having an even mid lane, they can just wait until you reach a good point for split push. Once you get a good point for split push, and as mentioned before, it came up with Ryze being so ahead of Rumble, with Zed having his safety in the Hex Drinker and the Bilgewater Cutlass, having a little bit more gold than Syndra. OMG could have been split pushing right now. Have Ryze in the top lane, have Zed in the bottom lane, have Kha'Zix floating around mid with several wards. We see great warding from OMG and Fnatic's bottom jungle. They could have been running their team composition. Instead, we see OMG in the middle lane as 5. They do get the turret, but when the fight happens, Fnatic come out with 3 kills to 1, even when OMG get the hook onto Kog'Maw. This shows the strength of Fnatic's team in the disengage, in the 5v5 fight, and how hard it is for OMG to actually engage onto them. OMG really should have taken this to heart right now and moved into the split push. This is something we see a lot of times in all teams, but particularly in the Asian teams, is that they're never really up for split pushing early. We don't see it essentially happen until the split push champion is like level 13, 14, 15, something really high, where instead they could have been split pushing from level 8 or 9. They don't even have to go in to totally split push against towers, they just need to draw members of the other team away. Once again, we see OMG in the middle as 5. They're not running their team composition properly. Yes, Dragon is up, but this is going to be a spot where Fnatic are really strong. If Kog'Maw was here a little earlier, they probably could have gone in for the fight. OMG are perfectly lined up for a great Rumble ultimate, and we see it go in, and it does really well. But they're there a little bit late. Also, Syndra is trying to flank instead of just being up front with Fnatic. This is really bad play, in my opinion. And I'm not entirely sure what Fnatic was thinking. They had the opportunity to all run in from the top side while Dragon was at full HP. They could have easily taken the fight to OMG, as once again OMG doesn't have the engage tools other than throwing themselves into Fnatic's team. And Fnatic have solid disengage with the Rumble ultimate, with the Nami ultimate. Good burst. I feel this is an essential misplay by Fnatic. They gave up the Dragon, they gave up 3 kills for 2, and simply by mispositioning. And we'll see it again. Syndra is trying to come in for a flank. This is really bad too. If OMG had turned, they all could have leapt onto Syndra. Zed could have got his ultimate, would have gotten an easy 1 kill. Instead of going 3-2, it could have been a 0 for 1. So, this is essentially a misplay by Syndra that really ends up hurting her team. So as we're moving now into the rest of the game, what Fnatic should be doing is looking. They should have been looking for this dragon, but they also should be looking for turrets. The top lane is open. Send their 4-man squad up there. The mid lane should be fine. It's very unlikely that OMG are going to end up pushing through into this. They can take Rumble Elise, Nami, Kog'Maw, and look to take this top turret through sieging. Leave Syndra up to deal with Zed. It's finally the right time for OMG. Well, not the right time. They're finally moving into this split push. Yes, Zed can't really kill Syndra, but Syndra can't necessarily kill Zed. But Zed being down in the spot lane draws Syndra away, removes a solid catch component of the chain CC of Fnatic. One thing to know about chain CCs is that if done properly, you essentially remove an enemy champion from the fight. So what's a 5v5 all of a sudden turns into a 5v4 because one of your champions is locked down for so long that they're never able to cast a spell. So you lose out on all that damage potential even while you're attacking the other team. But when you end up removing one of those CCs from play, such as Zed dragging Syndra away, you lower the duration of that chain CC. All of a sudden, instead of taking 5 to 6 seconds to fall out of CC, it's now 3 or 4 seconds that you're in CC. This makes a huge difference because it's much harder, especially with 4 champions instead of 5, to burst down a target in 4 seconds than it is in 5 or 6 seconds. This allows your champion who gets chain seed to come back up and provide something in the fight instead of being able to provide nothing in the 5v5. So this is good work by Zed being split pushing on the bottom. Right now, Ryze should be split pushing on the top rather than going for the defense. You can pretty much guarantee that they trade tier 2 turrets or that they pull Rumble away from pushing into this mid lane. If they can pull Rumble away as well, then OMG have the stronger 3-man trio. Not necessarily stronger in the turret defense or the siege potential, but they have the pick potential with Thresh. If he can land a hook, Kha'Zix, once as stated before, is going to be stronger than Elise. Lucian will be stronger than Kog'Maw, especially at this point where it's 2 items to 1.5. And Thresh is generally better in the middle of a fight than Nami is. Also, the 3-man squad of OMG are not going to have to burn any of their ultimates for an engage. You just wait for a Thresh hook. Thresh hook can go in, expect Nami to wave and Fnatic to back off. Don't bother using your ultimates on Lucian, Thresh, or Kha'Zix. So I really feel this is the play that OMG should be making. On the flip side, Fnatic, their choices are to rush down the mid lane or rush down a side lane with their 5-man squad. If they split up to deal with these split pushers, they're really losing out on their power as a team. And it's at that point it becomes sort of a game of chicken. Does Fnatic dive this turret that's defended 3v5? Does OMG move in with Ryze and Zed to defend? Do they instead split push, trade a tier 2 turret for 2 tier turrets? Does Ryze want to TP in to make that dive a 4v5 instead of a 3v5, which makes it much stronger for OMG if they're running this turret defense? So running this 1-3-1 kind of gives OMG all the options, whereas it gives Fnatic only one. Fnatic either push that mid turret and force OMG to react, or they slowly lose to the split push because OMG's split pushers are going to be stronger. And we do see Syndra beating out Zed, but this is fine because Syndra's not a split pusher. If she goes and takes things to the turret, she opens herself up to huge vulnerabilities from ganks by Kha'Zix and onto Zed. Whereas Zed is able to split push and get away. His job is not to take turrets, as stated before, but to just draw Syndra away. With this dragon up, I really would like to see Fnatic, as they're doing, take control of it. Grab the vision, control of Baron, deny wards to OMG, and wait for Syndra or Elise to get a nice hit that can be followed up by the bubble. That is Fnatic's game plan and what they should be doing. And they are actually properly doing it. It's just unfortunate that this is the first time they are properly doing this, whereas they should have been doing this since the previous 2 dragons. This is great play by OMG and a huge misplay by Fnatic. Zed dives super deep onto Kog'Maw, going into the base turrets, and they trade 1-for-1. Fnatic run to try and protect them, but they needed to recognize that Zed was already way too far ahead for them to do anything and move to protect the dragon. So OMG essentially steal the dragon by suiciding with Zed. So it works out for a good trade, and Fnatic simply just messed up in their rotations, and all that vision control and time they spent at Dragon turns into nothing because they panic to protect Kog'Maw rather than watching over the dragon. So at this point, we're still kind of running in the same situation. Fnatic need that 5-man fight. OMG want to keep split pushing and pull Fnatic apart. We're running into the 30-minute mark. Kog'Maw is starting to scale up a little bit. I do like in this situation the pickup of Blade of the Rune King and Trinity Force. I know in some of my other videos I said I don't like the Blade of the Rune King and would rather have seen the Infinity Edge. It's very situation based. In this situation, the Blade of the Rune King is a much stronger pickup, particularly against Zed. If Zed goes in, this means Kog'Maw has the burst to fight him toe to toe, and then that's exactly what we saw. This also gives him better power to fight against Lucian, so it works out really well. We do need to see a Quicksilver Sash coming from him soon. It should be his next item. And the double Hex Drinkers from OMG is also very strong, as Fnatic have tons of magic damage. So at this point, as stated before, Fnatic will need that 5v5. Even this four-man squad is pretty strong. Zed is properly pulling Syndra away, but I still think that Ryze should be split pushing top. There's no real reason for him to be with this 4-man squad. He could provide so much more pressure, so much more pulling Fnatic apart if he was in the top side split pushing, heading in for this inhibitor turret. Would have been very strong play, especially because he's 100 CS above Rumble and has +1 kill. On top of having the dragons at his back and the turret's Ryze is so strong at this point. He's way ahead of anyone else in the game, and he should be seeking to turn this pure strength he has into the 1v1 potential. Unfortunately, from OMG, this is not what we see. This draws the game out longer and longer, and as we know, this match goes extremely long, into 70+ minutes. When I feel at this moment, OMG have the win. They just don't properly play it. So while the game goes underway for a while, I want to look at a little bit of individual matchups. On the top side, we have Rumble versus Ryze. This match goes into Ryze's favor very early on. He's able to spam his Qs and his snare on Ryze. As the levels progress, especially once level 3 hits, Rumble has a little bit more opportunity to fight back. If he can hit an Electro Harpoon onto Ryze to slow him, his Flame Spitter will be able to reach Ryze even while snared. And then if he hits his second follow-up Electro Harpoon, he can chase Ryze down and provide better trade damage than Ryze can. So Ryze has to really start using his creeps to allow him to run in, get the quick Q and snare, and then back out very fast. This gives him superior trade potential as long as he plays it right. At level 6 though, Ryze kind of runs into the point where he's weaker than Rumble. Rumble has much stronger all-in. Rumble's ultimate also allows him to chase Ryze if Ryze tries to run up in Rune Prism. As well as the fact that Rumble's going to be building into these M-Pen items is very strong early game, whereas Ryze is going to take a power dip with his monoscaling phase. So this turns from Ryze being able to bully early into Rumble being able to bully in the mid game. At this point though, things start to transition into team fights, so Ryze is fairly safe from getting killed in the 1v1, but he does have to respect it. It also offers very strong gank potential on both sides. Rumble has no natural escape, and Ryze has a great way of setting Kha'Zix up. A Rune Prison into Kha'Zix slow on his Spike Rack, followed by Red Buff slow, pretty much guarantees Rumble is going to die if Rumble is ever outside of his turret range. If he's even he's at the halfway point of the top lane, there's still opportunity for a kill on OMG's side. On the other hand, because there's so much damage on Rumble, and because Elise has such high upfront damage, it's extremely possible for Elise to get into Ryze with the Cocoon. Rumble follows up with the slow. Ryze is not going to be able to run away, especially considering he's most likely going to be pushed up against Rumble's turret. And that's that matchup. Having said that, this is great play by Fnatic. Instead of trying to fight OMG, they have no vision of Baron. They take a little bit of a risk. They say, screw it, we're not walking into this death trap. If they're taking Baron, we're going straight down the middle. And OMG make a terrible decision here. If you look back a little bit, you'll see that they wait for a good 10 or 15 seconds to even start Baron. They know they have full vision control of it. They've swept the bushes, they've swept Baron, they have pinks out. They know that Fnatic know where they are, and they see Fnatic push middle. And it's not until after Fnatic are halfway through the tier 2 turret of OMG that OMG react and take Baron. They could have been taking Baron the minute they saw Kog'Maw pass the halfway point in the river. This would have allowed them to get back and defend their inhibitor in time, or at least be able to catch Fnatic as they run. The other option is when they saw Fnatic pushing middle, this would have been a great time for OMG to flank. They could have come up behind Fnatic, ran at them as they were taking the tier 2 turret, and probably collapsed and killed them. It would have shored up a lot of the weakness that OMG has in their engagement potential. I'm not sure why Rumble doesn't end up using his ultimate for some protection in here. Probably could have used it on the creep wave when Fnatic were pushing. However, he holds on to it. Not entirely sure why. Potentially he wants to use it to delay the backs of OMG. But this is also another good call by Fnatic. They realize they're out of position, that they're going to lose their mid T2 turret, if not be stuck in a siege situation with OMG. With OMG being stronger, OMG having the Baron, it was very likely that OMG would get into Fnatic's base anyways. What Fnatic does instead is have Kog'Maw push the bottom lane. He takes 2 turrets, and the big thing is he takes the inhibitor turret, and this opens up the map for Fnatic and creates more options. And this whole series of plays is what brings Fnatic back into this game. Even though they did lose Baron, they took 2 turrets and an inhibitor and a dragon for it, giving them a much bigger gold swing. When OMG respond by taking 2 turrets in the middle and the inhibitor, they respond by taking 2 turrets in the bottom. So the overall trade ends up being 4 turrets, a dragon, and an inhibitor for 2 turrets, Baron, and an inhibitor. So essentially an extra 2,000 gold for Fnatic, as well as more map pressure. With both inhibitors down, it kind of negates things, and Fnatic just need to defend out the Baron. It also means that OMG lose out somewhat on their split push potential. They can't do the 1-3-1, they can only move into the 1-4, and the 1-4 is now very split up. This means that Zed is not going to be able to get into the fights at any time. It's just so far away. OMG should be sieging this bottom turret right now. They're doing the proper play. Zed pushing middle is just kind of keeping the wave even and making sure he's close. Probably could have drawn out more pressure by going top and putting the pressure onto the top inhibitor turret. Once again, letting OMG run with their 4-man squad. Once again, we do see OMG kind of failing this split push, failing their team composition a little bit. There's no reason for this Zed to be here in middle fighting against this Syndra. He has nothing to gain other than just being a little bit closer to his team. It does pull Syndra away from the defense, but Fnatic don't want to defend this turret anyways. It's a very bad turret to defend. We all know it's called the death turret. So things are going in Fnatic's favor instead of OMG's. By the time we see Zed move towards the top lane, the wave is really far back. If he had gone for this top lane instead of being in this middle lane, OMG could have had pressure on top and bottom turret right now, but because of the way the creep waves were managed, they fail this. The reason why having this bottom inhibitor open is so deadly for OMG is due to Baron coming up. When Baron's open, you get a lot of your pressure on the top side of the map, and with the bottom side open, there's a couple options that Fnatic have. They can send somebody to sort of sneak in and steal that inhibitor while OMG have 5 people at Baron. Since Fnatic do have Rumble, they have great Baron defense just with him alone. Same thing with Syndra, able to get OMG in that small area. The other option is to start a split push, or not a split push rather, sorry, a slow push with the creeps. And we do end up seeing this happening, and it comes into huge effect in this game, and essentially could have given Fnatic the win, because OMG let this split push happen, or the slow push of creeps happen. If OMG's bottom inhibitor had never been opened up, if they had gone back to stop Kog'Maw and then returned to the middle lane to go for that open inhibitor, OMG could have also potentially won this game a lot earlier. It was a really bad play to let that bottom inhibitor open up, especially when you have Baron. OMG should have secured their base and then gone and taken Fnatic's space with the 1-3-1 split push with the Baron. The 1-3-1 split push would have worked to even greater effect while OMG had Baron. And we see OMG are fighting this 5v5 team fight for no real reason, and they get picked off. They play into Fnatic's team composition. Fnatic get the one catch that they need. All the burst goes down and kills them. This is really why, as I keep reiterating, OMG need to run the 1-3-1. So as we wait for Baron to spawn and the next real big plays to come in, let's talk about the mid lane matchup, Syndra versus Zed. This is a matchup that's fairly even. It favors Syndra a little bit because has a lot more farm potential. She's essentially safer than Zed. They both have similar burst with their ultimates, as well as Syndra having the option of the stun. There is a bit of chicken, though. If Syndra uses her ultimate, Zed can dodge out a lot of the damage, if not the entire ultimate, by using his onto Syndra. Throughout the lower levels, like 1 through 5, Syndra has full potential to dominate the lane, and she did, as we saw. She has range over Zed, range on her skills over Zed. She has the long range stun as well. If she's able to hit it in lane, she can get a quick damage combo onto Zed. She's just got everything is safer for her, with the ability to still harass. Even when her stun is down, she simply backs up a bit, uses her Qs to farm the lane, and proceeds to wait for the next one. If Zed goes all in, then Syndra has a little bit of a hard time stopping him with her stun, but it's not impossible. It's the same concept as Ahri. She aims it to hit Zed when he comes out of his shadow. Simply due to the mechanics, it's a little bit more difficult than hitting Ahri Charm, but it's still possible. And this is a great way for Syndra to save herself from the Zed all-in. Hit the stun, throw out your full combo, and start to walk away. Right now we're going to see a bit of a dance going on. Baron is up, and as mentioned before, this is going to be a big point in this next setup. With open inhibitors on both sides, there's a lot of potential map movement, although the greater map movement rests with Fnatic because they do have the bottom inhibitor open. I still would like to see OMG running the 1-3-1, especially with this Baron up. Rumble's teleport is down. Ryze could be on the bottom split pushing, draw somebody away from Fnatic's team, then teleport into the Baron area. It's really disheartening that OMG is not using Ryze to split push, and they haven't used him to split push at all this entire game, even though he's the strongest person in the game. Running Rod of Ages, Banshee's Veil, and Seraphim's Embrace, which he had earlier, as well as the Merc Treads, he has great resistance against Syndra if they sent Syndra to fight him. If they sent Rumble to fight him, he's much stronger too. He just, throughout the game, OMG had this option and never used it. On the support side, we'll go ahead and point out the items. Thresh picks up an Aegis, and this is a decent choice. Not necessarily sure if it's the best choice, as opposed to Mikhail's. Mikhail's Crucible would allow him to prevent the fishing opportunities of Fnatic. We saw that one time when Kha'Zix got caught in the mid lane while they were trying to go for the inhibitors, potentially could have saved his life. But the Aegis is also a great pickup because there is a ton of magic damage on Fnatic's side. So it's a bit of an argument as to which would be better, and I guess it would depend on which school of thought you move into. On Nami's side, I really like the pickup of Mikhail's as opposed to an Aegis, particularly because Elise picks up the Aegis as well. But even without having this Aegis, the Mikhail's Crucible is a great pickup, as the worst things that are going to happen to Fnatic is a Thresh hook. And if she can deny the Thresh hook, she denies a huge window of opportunity for OMG to go into Fnatic's team. On top of this, by picking up Mikhail's Crucible on your support, it allows your ADC to use their Quicksilver Sash against Zed. This is really huge, as even the late game, or even at this point in the game, if Zed is able to get onto your ADC and even hit him with both skills and the ultimate, it's probably going to be enough to kill him with it when the death mark pops. It's really strong at this point, and Zed has a lot of items. So that Quicksilver Sash or the Mikhail's Scimitar is absolutely necessary for your ADC to be using on the death mark. That's why the Mikhail's is pretty much a needed pickup for your support. That way your support blocks out the hooks and the picks, your ADC blocks out the Zed. Right now we once again saw OMG go into Fnatic's team, try and pick a fight, but as stated before, Fnatic has this disengaged composition. If OMG try to engage, Fnatic throw out their ultimates. You see Syndra and Elise throwing out their stuns. It's a really bad play by OMG to go into Fnatic, and they were able to take the mid inhibitor. They delay at Baron for a good amount of time. Unfortunately for Fnatic, this is a point in which they really end up being unable to secure a nice easy win at this point. Xpeke gets caught out. I don't know why he's trying to flank when OMG can collapse really well with Ryze and Zed. The Rumble ultimate was strong. Potentially could have saved Peke if he just ran. There's no reason for Rumble to be up there as well. If Fnatic had simply looked at their creep waves, they could have said, okay, we're just going to back off, move to the mid lane and defend. It's really unfortunate for OMG as well. They make a terrible, terrible, terrible choice here. As soon as they got Syndra down, as soon as they got Rumble down, they should have had Ryze teleport top, or even just back and go to top. They didn't respect this creep wave, and they had the opportunity to stop it. Ryze could have left his team in Ryze, or even Zed. Zed could have left his team, and that would have been better. Since Zed's ultimate was down, they could have left Ryze in the mid lane. As soon as Xpeke died, or as soon as Rumble died, Zed backs off, defends that turret. They don't lose it to creeps. And this is what I was talking about before, is Fnatic have the option of the slow push with the creeps. Slow push from the creeps end up taking the bottom inhibitor of OMG. So OMG essentially trade 2 kills and mid inhibitor for their bottom inhibitor. And this is never a good trade. The bottom inhibitor is worth so much more map pressure, especially with OMG's mid inhibitor already down. So here's a major mistake by OMG. They're way too focused on this mid lane, and we see it throughout the whole game. Just to hammer in an old point, not split pushing by Ryze, not stopping this creep wave, not stopping the Kog'Maw push. If the Kog'Maw push hadn't happened, if he hadn't opened up that bottom inhibitor, if those 2 turrets was up, because OMG had backed off to defend and then pushed mid for the inhibitor, this wouldn't have happened, and OMG wouldn't be in the deadly situation they're in right now. With this bottom inhibitor open, it forces somebody on OMG's side to defend it. This means Fnatic have the window for Baron when it respawns. It's going to be a little bit, but the timing is going to work out. With this bottom inhibitor open as well, it means that OMG, even with the mid inhibitor down, even with Baron, they can't pressure into Fnatic's side. We see Rumble up top, Zed is forced to the bottom, OMG's side is dealing with the mid wave. This gives Fnatic the option to go to this top lane, and they very well out-rotate OMG and take it. Forces OMG back to the top lane instead of pushing. It just gives great options to Fnatic. Let's see. Let's talk a bit about the bottom lane matchup. Oh no. Fnatic gets some great map movements here. They faked the back. They're sitting in here. They're really watching with their backs. They're looking to see if OMG are going to rush down the middle lane. However, OMG are looking for this huge wave in the bottom lane. They're also trying to take control of Fnatic's jungle. Fnatic get a great outplay, and they get this pressure on the top side. They're not going to force it in. Their objective right now is simply to delay OMG, and they're doing it really well. This is one example of, rather than delaying at your base, how you can delay through map movements. Especially recognize that because of the two inhibitors being down, this is what allows Fnatic to move around the map so well and to find these opportunities. If OMG had instead decided to try and fight Fnatic up top, they get this massive creep wave moving into OMG's Nexus. And as we know, side inhibitors, the super minions can take Nexus turrets because they only get hit by one and they get that focus on the one turret instead of splitting it up. So right now there's not necessarily anything both teams can do. They just have to delay at this point and wait. It's all about what team makes a mistake. Even though OMG have a 10,000 gold lead, the game is so late that it's starting not to matter. Everyone on Fnatic's side, except for support and jungle, are moving into their 5th item. We see OMG's side is pretty much stacked. Ryze is on full 6 items, Kha'Zix is on full 5, Zed's on full 6, and so is Lucian. OMG are pretty much done, and the whole game becomes about playmaking. It becomes a little bit harder for OMG to run the split push now because they have open inhibitors. If they try and do a 1-4 or a 1-3-1, Fnatic can rush the base. Essentially, the worst thing that can happen to you when you're split pushing is a base race. And at this point in the game, it's too late for OMG to really rely on that split push ability. They can use the split push to manipulate creep waves, and that's going to be their best bet. Try and find rotational mistakes from Fnatic, but at this point, there's not too much that OMG can do to force a fight. They have to see Fnatic opt into one, and Fnatic don't have to. They can defend as well and wait for a mistake by OMG. Try and shore up the last items that they need. Just wait for the catch potential. Fnatic can also move as the 5-man to try and get some better potential. They have the option to put pressure onto OMG because they're running this catch composition. They just have to be very careful of it. So as we move into the next stage, let me talk about the bottom lane. Kog'Maw Nami against Thresh Lucian is a pretty interesting matchup. I really like Nami against Thresh and Lucian. She provides great protection for her ADC as well as helping them sustain through the lane. Anytime Thresh gets a hook onto the ADC, this is all of a sudden just signals to Nami to look to stop Lucian. if Lucian ever uses his dash in after Thresh gets the hook, this allows Nami an easy bubble. She hits the slow onto him, hits the bubble, completely denies Lucian Thresh their damage onto Nami's ADC. Even if they get some, it's not enough to kill him. Nami is then able to create sustain that allows Kog'Maw to stick in the match. On top of this, since Kog'Maw has range, once he hits about level 5, he can easily use his auto attack skill with the Nami slow to get some free damage onto Lucian Thresh, and they eventually whittle down Thresh Lucian. This also goes into effect when Kog'Maw hits 6, having greater poke. And so this is some interesting play. It's almost like OMG took a page out of Fnatic's book, and they trade mid inhibitor for Baron. Unfortunately for OMG, this is not a smart trade. The mid inhibitor is not all that valuable on its own against Baron, especially this late in the game. The super minions don't mean much when you have a full team of 5, particularly because super minions have negative magic resist. Syndra, Elise, and Rumble are going to easily be able to take it out, as well as Kog'Maw with his HP shred. Since super minions aren't very valuable in a lane that is highly defended. Whereas if super minions are coming from the side lane, this means that you can put pressure on the middle and draw the opponents away. Well, OMG could particularly do this because Fnatic have Baron. This means that they can simply just push up the middle and take out this weakness. If OMG were to try and sneak into the bottom, it ends up being a base race. Fnatic have the positional advantage of being able to get to the Nexus quicker from the mid lane, whereas OMG would have to run through the turret without a creep wave. And try and either push a creep wave into the bottom, which means they have to take turret plus inhibitor, and then move on to the Nexus turrets. Whereas Fnatic's side, they can run up the middle, take the inhibitor, and then the 2 Nexus turrets with the creep wave. Fnatic have the advantage in position because of Baron. The other option for OMG would be to bypass the bottom turret and go straight for Nexus turrets, but then that means they're going against Nexus turrets who have the backdoor buff. So it still works into Fnatic's favor. So Fnatic now with Baron have taken the better trade in this situation and are able to put pressure onto OMG's mid inhibitor. What this also does is means the window of opportunity for Fnatic is going to be longer. Baron stops this inhibitor push this in the mid lane, as stated before, and by the time Fnatic are able to get the mid inhibitor of OMG, this means for them that they're going to have the super minion spawns in the middle later than OMG will. Fnatic will have the super minion spawns when Baron comes back around, thus once again giving them the advantage. So not a really good trade for OMG. Baron, while being a great spot for Fnatic to fight in, is also a good spot for OMG to try and fight back, as it forces the engagement. And that's what OMG are really lacking in their team, is a way to engage onto Fnatic. And we're seeing this right here. Fnatic are just sitting around in OMG space. OMG have no way to get in. We see the slow siege pick composition of Fnatic coming to fruition. So here comes to a very interesting point. If Fnatic are able to get this bottom inhibitor, essentially they have the ability to sort of win the game. With 2 inhibitors down with Baron, they have the pressure options, but OMG make some great defensive moves. As we see, Fnatic are able to take it. This gives Fnatic so much strength and pressure. It's almost as if, in this point of the game, Fnatic have won. With 2 inhibitors down, Fnatic simply need to push top. And as stated before, grabbing the inhibitors at this late after Baron means Fnatic have complete advantage. We see their inhibitor respawning. Now, so they have the next 4 minutes, 3 minutes in the middle, probably 4 minutes on the bottom lane. They have huge potential, even as Baron's wearing off. So at this point in the game, Fnatic simply need to send Rumble to the top, maybe Syndra as well. Start to push out this wave. Make sure it's moving in favor of Fnatic towards OMG's base. Go push out the middle, swing top, and move into OMG's base while the super minions in bot lane and mid lane push in. There's no actual defense for OMG, and as long as Fnatic pull this off correctly, they'll be fine. OMG do make an interesting swing. This is part of the problem. This is why I said Fnatic should start the wave slow pushing, move, secure mid, and move up. They had several minutes of opportunity to do this. They essentially gave away their mid inhibitor to OMG for nothing. Rumble starts back, but he stops. He really should stop. I know Fnatic are worried about the back door, or about the base race, which OMG could have done. Right at this point, OMG could have potentially won the game as well. Have that 4-man squad as soon as that mid inhibitor was done, rush into the Nexus turrets. They had a large lane of advantage. They could have taken the win right there. On top of this, there's so much damage. You have 3 AD sources in Kog'Maw and Zed. They could have effectively finished the game off. And there was rotational mistakes by Fnatic. They needed to secure that middle lane before moving to the top. Had the slow push of creeps and then just met them up there. Things are still going on. They have plenty of time. And right here, OMG throw the game a second time. Instead of everybody rushing middle after they got the kills on Rumble, Elise, and Syndra, they run around trying to find Kog'Maw and Nami. As we see, they're completely dilly-dallying. There's not much going on. OMG could have rushed middle, taken the win. On top of this, because they're looking for these kills, they lose 2 Nexus turrets in their base to super creeps. Huge misplay by OMG once again. This is a problem with this fight mentality. Instead of looking for the objectives, they're looking for the fights. And this is something where we know C9 is very objective focused. C9 would have gotten those 3 kills, rushed middle for the game win. Potentially sent Ryze back to defend against the super creeps, preventing the Nexus from dying, creating a 4v2 in the middle, instead of ending up with this situation where, once again, OMG come out behind when they should have been coming out ahead. With Zed down, Fnatic end up rushing. With Zed down, with Ryze TP down, with OMG having to defend their bottom lane, Fnatic take an easy Baron, and this goes back once again to OMG making the bad trade of middle inhibitor for Baron, and of Fnatic slow pushing, delaying in the middle lane, so that when they take the inhibitors will be down for the next Baron spawn. And it's at this point that Fnatic can essentially win the game in 3 different ways. One, they could try and just brute force down a fight, go in and win the 5v5. That's probably the most dangerous situation for them, but it is an option because they do have Baron. The other option is the slow push and siege, take out one inhibitor, move to the next inhibitor, move to the next inhibitor. That's the second, probably safest option, the one that allows them to play more proactively than reactively. But there is an interesting third option. If Fnatic were to move into OMG's blue side jungle, or even their red side jungle, either jungle side, find a bush to hide in, take complete control of vision, they could sit there and wait. The moment OMG show themselves at the river, then Fnatic rush into OMG's base, they have positional advantage. They can take out this Nexus before OMG have the ability to respond. Just simply rush it as 5, focus on it, kill it before OMG's recalls come in, kill it before OMG can run back. It's an interesting strategy that you can do when both Nexus turrets are down. Fnatic do end up choosing the slow push. They take out the middle inhibitor. Now they're going to work on the top, and this does work out really well for them. So we're just going to see this come out to play, and it's very standard. We have Baron, we're taking the inhibitors. Unfortunately for OMG, they really should have never let this happen. The moment the second inhibitor went down, OMG lose the game. This is essentially a death sentence for OMG, but Fnatic mess it up. They get a little too greedy. What would have been great play right now with both these inhibitors down, Fnatic back up, rush up the middle lane, or rush up the bottom lane, go clear it out. They also have this second option, which they're going to do, and that is just go after the inhibitor with no creeps. And this isn't a bad idea. The turret's down, they have Baron still, they want to use it, and this is a great opportunity, but they get too overzealous. With both inhibitors down, the proper strategy is to wait for super creeps to push into OMG's base and force somebody back. Because OMG have no Nexus turrets, this is triply effective. Fnatic simply need to sit here and wait. They can even wait for their creeps to come push up just by killing the creep waves of OMG. There's literally nothing OMG can do right now to win the game, but Fnatic completely throw it. Cogwin gets caught trying to take the inhibitor. Things all go to shit for Fnatic, and it's essentially the game. Or well, it's not the game. I'm sorry. It's Fnatic not winning the game. If Fnatic had simply backed off, not worried about forcing down this inhibitor, and let the super minions do their job, Fnatic could have won. And this has been stated several times by casters. Fnatic themselves know it. Anytime you have double inhibitors down, you essentially win the game through super creeps. So it's at this point that things get a little bit hectic. There's something interesting I put in my notes, and it just kind of makes me laugh as a possibility, is as OMG are pushing up this mid lane, Rumble has an interesting option. We know we see the ward in OMG space. We know we have super creeps up at the top lane. It's very deadly right here for OMG. It's lucky for well, not lucky, I mean they got him down, that Fnatic have the super creeps that sort of stops OMG's push. And here we're going to see Rumble teleport. It would have been hilarious to me to have seen Rumble sell all his items and buy like 6 BF swords. This would have provided huge damage onto the Nexus turret. And we do know, if anyone has watched the caster desk for this, that Rumble ends up losing his team the game again. Well, not again for Rumble, but his team loses a win opportunity again because Rumble misplays. He gets one auto attack onto Kha'Zix, which, as we see, ends up losing it, where it could have been used on the inhibitor. As well, the more important part is that he doesn't use his ultimate on the creep wave, instead using it at the base to try and slow down somebody who has a huge leap. This ends up causing Fnatic the game, as we see right here, one auto attack, even from a Spiderling. If Rumble had also used his ultimate on the creep wave, it would have allowed his creeps to get those last 2 hits in, or it would have simply allowed him to survive longer because Kha'Zix no longer gets the isolation damage because Rumble has his creeps next to him. And this is a huge portion of Kha'Zix's damage. So, a couple of misplays there. We get this super exciting ending, but it never needed to happen. If OMG had played their composition properly, had run the 1-3-1 split push, especially when Ryze was so much stronger than anyone else in the game, they could have prevented this whole situation from happening. They could have pulled Fnatic apart into pieces, slowly taken the outside turrets, taken the middle turret, had easily secured Barons and Dragons, could have taken this huge gold lead that they had and snowballed it into a win. There was no need for Fnatic to ever have a chance to come back with Ryze that strong that early. Unfortunately, OMG don't do this. We see them running a 1-4 with Zed being unable to take out Syndra and then take turrets. It was really just a neutral farm lane in the Zed Syndra, and then nothing happening in the mid lane with the 4-man squad. On top of this, the map rotations by OMG were really bad. We see several times where they make unfavorable trades, starting with the Baron for the middle inhibitor, followed by them rushing mid without securing their base, Kog'Maw opening up the bottom inhibitor. Following that, we see OMG have the opportunity that they get 2 kills. They could have a 4v3 in the mid lane to take that mid inhibitor, with Zed going back to stop their bottom inhibitor from going. However, not only do they let the bottom inhibitor go, they go to get Baron instead of defending it. It was just really bad macro level choices from OMG, letting Fnatic open up OMG's base. After these really huge mistakes by OMG, we see Fnatic taking the advantage of the game, just simply through creep pressure, through the ability to go after Barons while OMG have to defend. OMG once again let their Nexus turrets die when they're chasing Fnatic. OMG missed 2 opportunities to win the game, end up allowing Fnatic back in once again. And then we see Fnatic messing up their win. They had 3 exposed inhibitors, they had 0 Nexus turrets to deal with, they had 3 different options to win the game, and ended up becoming impatient and losing the games due to impatience. Both teams turned essentially guaranteed wins into losses. For most of the game, it was OMG's game to lose, and they did, and then when it was Fnatic's game to lose, they did as well. So now, it's essentially a little bit over for Fnatic. They threw everything they could at that inhibitor. They threw everything they had at the Nexus, trying to get that win. It was the right moves to make, and just a little bit of mistakes made at the Nexus. Even afterwards, when you had Kog'Maw Nami against Ryze Kha'Zix, I would have really liked to have seen Fnatic still throw themselves at it. They only needed the one hit, whether it was from Nami or from Kog'Maw, and potentially they could have made it there to hit it. Because this goes sour for them, OMG get the Baron. OMG now with respawn inhibitors, put the pressure onto Fnatic. Once again, there's still the option for Fnatic to sort of hide and sneak into OMG's side. They have to play it very carefully, especially since they were down 2 inhibitors. The other option for Fnatic is rush middle and get the fight win. But, however, they do not get the fight win. The Baron buff proves strong for OMG, and they get the right type of attack. They catch the right people in this situation. Now OMG win. So that is this game. It's very long, it's exciting to watch, but there are a ton of mistakes being made all the way back into like the 20-minute mark. This game should have never gone past 40 minutes, should have never gone past 45 minutes, and then again it should have never gone past the 60-70 minute mark. There were several opportunities for both teams to win. So taking away, I've pretty much recapped the game. Take that away from this match. Take away learning to play your team compositions. Fnatic played theirs pretty well. That's why they were able to come back. But OMG played their team composition really bad, and they didn't take advantage when they could, especially with their Ryze. While Ryze played amazingly well and never died, he improperly played the split push, and Fnatic almost got the win out of it. The other big thing to take away is don't let your base be opened up for no reason. OMG allowed essentially their entire bottom lane from the tier 2, the inhibitor turret, the inhibitor, and both Nexus turrets to go down for no reason. They could have easily defended all of these situations, but they did not. So, take away from that, don't let your base be opened up for nothing. Don't get so lost in the moment that you're like, oh, we have to get this inhibitor, but lose your own. The things to take away from Fnatic are know your team composition well. There's really good. They played it really well. They played the catch right. They drew OMG into the 5v5s, into the 4v4s. They kept staying together, so OMG thought they had to fight on even numbers when they did not. The other thing to take away is don't ever give up. Fnatic made great map rotations when they saw that Baron was very vulnerable. They said, guys, we can't run into this. And then they chase for trade. They go straight down the middle and trade. When they know they're going to be weaker at the defense, they leave Kog'Maw to push up the bottom lane, trying to draw OMG away from pushing into their inhibitor, but it works out for them that they do. So Fnatic are looking for objectives to trade and constantly try and draw OMG away from their push, and it works very effectively. The other big point to take away from Fnatic in this match is don't get overzealous. There was the time when Fnatic had the win. They had the win almost completely secured. 90% chance of win, and they did the one thing that would cause them to lose, and that's get impatient. So that's this match. Hope it was very informative, especially on looking at mistakes, looking at potentials to have not had this game go anywhere close as long. I hope it was entertaining. Once again, the notes for this match can be found below, as well as a link to the portal page for all of my 2014 League of Legends World Championships notes and video analysis. I'm Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers, and thanks for watching.